In what way does your media product use, develop or challenge the codes and conventions of a real media product?
When Ryan is running into the shot of the camera, it creates suspense as there is low-key lighting at night, which creates a lot of ambiguity as we do not know what is lurking in the dark.
The non-diegetic sound of suspense builds up and gets louder until the phone rings, then continues until Ryan gets hit. This directly links to the codes and conventions of an action film, as the soundtrack always becomes more dominant when the character is about to be harmed or when creating suspense.
The body language and movement, for example, when Ryan looks at his phone and his hand is shaking, this reflects that his character is scared and nervous and that he knows that he is in danger. Codes and conventions of an action film, there is always a villain and a victim, and one of them is in a place of authority.
Again, in the next scene of the film, we see the victim and the villain approach as Ryan is held hostage in the chair while Ezra emotionally tortures him. This links to the codes and conventions of action films because they typically have nervous yet strong-minded victims, and the villains are often businessmen of sorts. With both of the characters being male, this also follows the codes and conventions of action films, as it is typically men in authority and men whose business arrangements become distorted into hostage situations.
Another way in which the villain-victim scenario follows the codes and conventions is when the position of authority switches and the original victim is now the villain. This switches in many action films as it creates suspense and hermeneutic tension, as you don't know why Ezra has been tied up.
The inside of the location follows the codes and conventions of an action film. The location seems large, industrial and dilapidated. The setting creates an authentic feel of action, with the arched ceiling creating an authentic diegetic sound of echo. This links to the codes and conventions as the more authentic, realistic the mise-en-scène in the setting is, the more natural suspense is created. Similarly to the typical action film, our film uses fast cuts during the high-tension scenes, such as when the victim is caught by being hit over the head by the villain. How does your media production represent particular social groups?
Our production represents social groups mainly through costume, dialogue and posture. For example, we can see that Ezra's character is of a slightly higher social group due to his well-kept attire and tidy black leather shoes. He is also male, which means that he is typically of a higher social class than if he were female. Ezra's dominance throughout through use of tone in his dialogue assets his dominance, showing that he has more power in the situation. The shots also show him his dominance power, as they show him at a higher level than Ryan, trying to portray that Ryan is of lower class and has less power.
Ryan's social group of a young computer hacker is portrayed through the use of costume. In the first scene we see his mismatched suit, his black tie and his grey jacket. We also see his stereotypical geeky nerdy glasses that he wears. The diegetic sound of the footsteps for Ezra's character shows us that he is ambiguous as a character. The shot of his footsteps and legs with no facial visibility creates ambiguity around his character, which supports the stereotype of an action film villain.
Brian's character is involved in an illegal line of work, which shows he's from a lower class, as usually people with no money will delve into illegal doings. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why?
First of all, a media institution is an established and often profit-based organisation that deals in the creation and distribution of advertising, entertainment and informational services. It helps in gathering information and perceptions about different groups of people and their originality.
A media institution that would distribute a film like ours could be Icon Films Distribution, as the majority of the films they distribute are action films which follow the same codes and conventions to ours. The IFD team is led by CEO Ian Dawson and Norman Humphrey, Executive Chairman and Chief Operation Officer. Formed in 1999, Icon Film Distribution is one of the world's leading independent film distributors.
Our film would appeal to them because we use parallel editing, shown by Ezra entering the building to get Ryan, as Ryan has no clue of what is coming. This is dramatic irony which creates tension, which makes the film more interesting and entertaining. Our film would appeal to them because we use parallel editing, shown by Ezra entering the building to get Ryan, as Ryan has no clue of what is coming. This is dramatic irony which creates tension, which makes the film more interesting and entertaining.
We have also followed generic codes and conventions of action films by showing who is in power in certain situations, with low and high angle shots plus low key lights. This would attract Icon Film Distribution to distribute our product because they distribute generic action films. Even though our product is of a low budget, we feel the idea should have a high budget, and there are many special effects and stunts we could not include due to this factor. How do you attract or address your audience?
The audience we are trying to attract is mainly middle-class Western males between the ages of 16 and 25. This is a very mainstream audience. We attracted our audience by using a plain and dark mise-en-scène to create a negative feel to the situation. We also used a lot of infrequent, loud, non-diegetic booms to shock the audience and to keep them on edge, therefore increasing the entertainment value of our film.
We also used a lot of proerotic tension in two particular scenes. The first scene where Ryan gets hit by the unknown character, and the penultimate scene where Ryan picks up the knife. Both of these scenes have an instant cut to black, creating suspense and shock value. The use of this tension makes the film ambiguous, which helps to group the attention of the audience.
Hermeneutic tension is created in the final scene where Ezra is in the chair. As this is the end of the film, it will leave the audience asking questions. The young actors are a similar age to the target audience, which makes it easier for the audience to connect and relate to the characters. Also, younger members of the audience can form a strong personal relation with Ryan, as he's smart and strong-minded, and becomes the figure of power in the narrative at the end.
At the start, the sound and character and body language of Ryan comes off as nervous. This aids the audience sympathy towards his character, forming a strong personal relation and instantly showing he is the victim.
What have you learnt about technology from the process of constructing this product?
In our research, we use mainly YouTube tutorials and web pages to help us optimise the use of our Canon 600D. Mainly it taught us about the ISO and how to use it effectively in different lights, for filming and also taking pictures for our storyboard.
We used the internet to help us learn how to use Final Cut Pro, and we also received help from the Media Studies department at school.
We found that using a higher ISO in a lower light situation gave us orange bars across the screen. We resolved this by lowering the ISO, which also helped towards the mise-en-scène of our production.
We also learnt about the general usefulness of technology, for example using technology like mobile phones to create part of our storyline. We also used mobile phones for communication to make sure we were prepared for filming and had gathered all the necessary equipment.
We also used conversion technology, for example our mobile phones, to view YouTube tutorials when we didn't have access to a computer, and to communicate ideas within the group and the actors.
Looking back at your preliminary task, what do you feel you have learned in the progression from it to the full product?
We developed our camera work by learning how to use the ISO and aperture appropriately for different light settings. For the outside scenes we used a lower ISO than indoors due to more light being present.
We also had better use of shot reverse shot. In the preliminary task we didn't use a lot of the shot reverse shot, but in our final product we used it frequently, as it is the best way to capture dialogue.
We also discovered parallel editing. It is a good way to build up tension, so we used it to our advantage. As Ezra walks out of the side to enter the building, we see Ryan tied in a chair, who is unaware of what is occurring.
We learnt to use non-diegetic sound to create tension and suspense. We use online sites such as Freesound to find good tense ambient noises to add to our product.